If you've tried breathwork and it left you feeling anxious, dizzy, or worse, it isn't necessarily that you did it wrong. It's more likely that you chose or were guided through a breath practice that did not match your nervous system. In this video, I'm going to share what you need to know to make an informed decision so that you can try again with confidence and hopefully better results. Hi, I'm Dr. Dawn Browning, somatic scientist, yoga therapist, and Pranayama teacher in the Gitananda yoga tradition. I help high-achieving women use holistic, science-informed practices like conscious breathing to stabilize their energy, improve their focus, and do it without wellness cliche or hacks. I hear this all the time. I tried breathwork to calm down and it made me anxious. Or my HRV, my heart rate variability, dropped even though I don't feel stressed. What's going on? And here's what I want you to know. You're not alone. There is nothing wrong with you. I just want you to try a conscious breathing practice that fits your nervous system and your energetic state. Think of this video as your guide to choosing the breath practice with intention to support your energy and your nervous system to work in concert with it rather than against it. Here's what's most likely happening when breathwork feels bad. So many modern breathwork practices are fast, forceful, and include long retention. So either holding the breath in or out, or they use continuous cyclical breathing at a very rapid pace. These can drop your CO2 levels really quickly. In fact, if they fall too quickly, it's a state that we call hypocapnia. And so low CO2 narrows your blood vessels, limits oxygen to the brain, which your body reads as a stress signal. So this is also why you might feel lightheaded or dizzy. Studies show that this low CO2 state activates your stress response. But when you slow your breathing and you breathe consciously and with intention, and we've kind of found that what the ancient rishis always knew, the modern science has documented that between 5.5 to 6 second inhales or exhales, so this is 5 or 6 breaths per minute, optimizes what we call your cardiac coherence and harmonizes the signals between the brain and the heart. So if we slow the breath down and we breathe through the nose for a count of 6 in and 6 out, that particular breath can work with your system rather than against it. I want to cover just a few basics about the nervous system. So your nervous system has 2 main jobs: activate or regulate. So the activation energy or activation response in your nervous system is done by your sympathetic nervous system, whereas the regulation functions of your nervous system are done when the parasympathetic nervous system is the dominant response. So your breath amplifies whichever of these states, activation or regulation, is dominant. Understanding where you are in a given moment is critically important to matching your energetic state or your nervous system state, or if you need to balance it to bring it more from activation to more of a regulation response. Okay, so knowing where you are and what your intention is with the given breath practice are the 2 important things to kind of keep in mind. So if you're overactive in a stress state, so this is a sympathetic nervous system response, you might notice a tight jaw, racing thoughts, or shallow upper chest breathing. Stimulating breath work, like cyclical, continuous breathing, can only amplify that and push you farther into that activated state. But if you're in a lower energy or a lower energy or maybe disconnected state, slow and heavy breathing might actually make you feel even lower, flatter, or more lethargic. So these are examples of how your breath amplifies your sympathetic or your parasympathetic nervous system response. So when you can read your state, you can choose the right breath to restore balance. Because we want to be where both the activating and regulating nervous system responses are working properly, and we're not always stuck in this sympathetic overdrive high stress state, which tends to be where a lot of us spend a lot of time in this modern day. I want to talk more about the nervous system in terms of how you might feel, and then talk about which breath rhythm might be most helpful, and then what breath practices you would want to avoid. If we start with the fight or flight, so this is the activated sympathetic nervous system response. So if you're in fight or flight mode, you might feel wired, like nonstop. You can't slow your thoughts. You're restless. You have tense shoulders, or you're anxious in the upper. Your chest may feel tight. Then I would really recommend a slow diaphragmatic breathing. So breathing into the low lungs, and I will connect a link to a guided practice you can do where I've led this before, with a 6 count in and out through the nose. Okay? You want to avoid rapid inhaling and exhaling, so rapid breathing and holding those breaths, because the holding of the breath can actually, if you're already in an activated or anxious state, can make your mind feel even more stressed. So you're stressing an already stressed system even further. So that's fight, flight. When you're activated, you're tense, you're wired, and you're restless. 6 in, 6 out, slow diaphragmatic breathing is probably your best result. If you are in what we call a freeze or collapse state, so this is where you're kind of truly activated, you're stunned, and this is often associated with traumatic experiences. You might feel heavy, you might feel checked out or disconnected, an out-of-body experience. Then you want to gently activate the breath. So breathe in, out, and then hold the breath out. Briefly. In, out, and then hold the breath briefly. You definitely want to avoid long holds or extended exhales in this case. So in the case of freeze or collapse, obviously you want to make sure that you feel safe. It's often helpful to place your hands on the body. I'm just placing my hands on my forearms to feel safe and come back to the body. And then take a few activating breaths, but they're not super, super fast in a fast rate. Okay, so if you are in a flow state, so you're neither stressed nor are you frozen, this is really, I think, where we want to spend the majority of our time. So this is when the parasympathetic or your regulation branch of your nervous system is dominant. We want to, again, we can use the 6 in, 6 out count breath, but we want it to be balanced, and ideally through both nostrils. So a quick way to test that is to just block one nostril and breathe in and out through the other, and then do it with the other side. And this is actually just testing your nasal dominance, is an interesting kind of exercise to do before you take meals, because you want to be breathing evenly in both your left and right nostrils, or at least be left nostril dominant. But in this case, when you are feeling balanced, clear, focused, and steady, ideally your breath is moving steadily in and out. And with practice, you can build this 6 count in and out as your natural steady rhythm. So again, I mentioned that this 5.5 to 6 second inhales and exhales, or 5 to 6 breaths per minute, is kind of like what's been identified as your cardiac coherence. So this is kind of the natural regulated balance state that we would ideally have as our default breath. So consider this your map. If you wake up tired or restless, lengthen your exhales and slow the breath. Okay? If you wake up sluggish or foggy, try a wave-like breath that flows in and out through the nose and using the entire chest to expand in and out, and bring your awareness to the flow of that breath in and out. And if you can identify your state, you can choose the breath that helps you restore equilibrium in your nervous system instead of forcing it to change too far in one direction or the other. And I want to kind of tie this into something that you might be tracking or familiar with, which is called heart rate variability. One of my viewers left a comment to say, I'm turning to breathwork for hormone change and to increase my HRV, so my heart rate variability. The last thing I want to do is to activate more anxiety. And that's such an honest reaction, and many of us track things like HRV in our sleep, either through things like Oura Rings or different apps, and yet we can still feel confused when we don't see an improvement. What's missing is context. Our heart rate variability, our hormones, mood, they all affect our nervous system and its rhythm. Whether we're in the activated state or a regulating state, your mood, your HRV, whether or not you slept well, and actually what you ate, how much sugar you've had in your last meal, all of these things influence your nervous system. And the goal isn't necessarily to always be relaxed and sedate, but it's rather to be adaptable, to be agile, to be able to respond quickly when you need to, and to be in a state of kind of regulation and steadiness and ease most of the time. I want to say a few more things about how to increase your HRV or your heart rate safely. It's a mark of your agility and your nervous system resilience. It shows how easy you can move between sympathetic and parasympathetic responses, and you want to be able to do that as needed. But you don't want to force a higher heart rate variability. You can support it through balanced breathing, practice. Practice is really important to make this a normal part of your routine. Regular movement, and it can be a 15-minute walk after each meal. It could be more cardiovascular workout. It could be strength training, but just moving the body daily, and also getting good sleep. So all of these things give your nervous system, or give your system, kind of the healthy buoyancy that it needs to be able to adapt to the circumstances that you are faced with, and which translates into a higher heart rate variability, or HRV. So there are a few studies that showed that slow diaphragmatic breathing, around 6 breaths per minute, which I mentioned, improves your vagal tone and raises your HRV within minutes. So these practices do not have to be done for a long period of time. You can do 5 to 10 minutes each day, or perhaps ideally 5 minutes a few times throughout the day. Slow diaphragmatic breathing will help increase your vagal tone and increase your heart rate variability, both of which are markers of your nervous system resilience, your ability to respond as needed. Even if you don't feel stressed, your body may be holding subtle tension. You may be dehydrated, in fact. So the right breath invites you to release the tension that you're holding instead of pushing it down and continuing on through your day, instead of just pushing through. Which breath supports hormone balance? I wanted to mention this as well. So if you're using breathwork to support hormone balance, and this could be metabolic hormones, this could be reproductive hormones. The hormones are really this complex kind of players in what I call the symphony of your endocrine system, which is the system that releases and governs the flow of hormones throughout the body. So your hormones run the show, but your breath sets the tempo. So in midlife, when we have big shifts in estrogen and progesterone, these patterns can throw off cortisol rhythms, and cortisol is also a stress hormone, that really are intimately tied to our breath. The key is not intensity, it's rhythm. This is the pace of your breathing, the style of your breathing, and consistency. Think of this. Your breath becomes the metronome for your endocrine system. I love that. Your breath becomes the metronome for your endocrine system, for your hormones. So if you like to practice together, I want to just demonstrate one of the practices that we talked about. This is Adam Pranayama. It's diaphragmatic breathing. You can use your hands and place them on your low ribs. So just feel around for your low ribs. And the low ribs is approximately where the diaphragm is. So this is the main muscle that governs respiration. And so we're going to breathe in and out through the nose for a count of 6, just twice. So we'll take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In. Out. Perfect. Release the hands. The reason I suggested using your hands is that you can bring the mind, it helps anchor the mind, which can be very busy, to where we're wanting to bring our attention, which is in the low ribs. You can do that breath a few minutes a day, in the morning, in the evening, maybe on your lunch break, and you will be maybe surprised of the difference that it makes. This is Sukha rhythm, the in and out of equal count. It's a very rhythmic breath, and it's one of my favorite to practice, and it's super easy, so you can do it anywhere. You always want to keep the spine long, and as I mentioned, placing hands on the ribs, wherever it is that you want to direct attention, really can help anchor the mind on to the lungs where we're wanting the energy and the breath to flow. How do you choose the right breath work for your nervous system? So we start by noticing our state. Okay, so do I feel anxious? Do I feel calm? Do I feel lethargic? Do I not really want to move much? This is also a beautiful practice to just tune in and notice how you feel when you wake up in the morning. You can even do this in bed. And from that place, you can go back to the examples that I shared earlier, when you're activated versus when you're balanced versus when you are feeling flat, dull, or lethargic. So you can choose the breath, rhythm, and style that matches or would be the one to balance that state so that you come back to this balanced, rhythmic, kind of parasympathetic dominant state. I always want to say too, if you're one of those who's tracking HRV, your heart rate variability, don't focus too much on the numbers or don't obsess over those numbers. They're excellent indicators. They're excellent indicators that you might be under stress. And I would say maybe try to get better sleep. Drink some water, go for a walk outside. These are all very simple things that you can do to get those numbers back if they seem to have gone low. But don't obsess over them, right? This is just the beginning. And if you would like more to take this journey a little further, to explore different breath practices that may align with the 5 elements, which is another framework that I often use to conceptualize the stress that we're in, or to kind of help you explore a few guided breath practices with audio recordings that I've created, I have a 7-day energy reset, and I will include that in the video description and on the link here, and you can check that out if you would like to go a little further. So just remember, it's more about attuning to your needs, where you are, and what you think you need. And if you're not sure, come back to this steady rhythm of in and out through the nose. Attempt to get to a 6-count breath. Work up if you're not quite there in this moment. And if you're really, really excited and you want to calm down quickly, you can lengthen the exhale. But these are just simple practices that you can do, and I cannot wait to see how you feel and what you think. If you have any comments, please leave them below, or questions, or any suggestions for things that you might like to learn more about. I would love to get that input from you. Thank you for being here.